Okay, I suppose we are live now. Okay, so let's start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on data-driven approach. How can the data-driven approach transform software delivery to drive meaningful business results? My name is Mateusz. I'm tech evangelist in BrainHub, and I will have the pleasure of hosting today's session. Today we will be discussing many aspects of data-driven approach, focusing particularly on the role of data in decision-making, leveraging data to achieve better outcomes, tools to enable data-driven approach, common pitfalls and challenges, and the impact on software delivery excellence. Now I would like to introduce our special guests, Alexandra Geppert, Head of Delivery, and Michał Kaleta, DevOps Engineer. Alexandra, could you please tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Ola, and I'm a head of delivery here at BrainHub, which basically means that I am making sure that our projects are delivered according to our standards and that our customers are happy. Michał.
Hey everyone, my name is Michał. I'm a DevOps engineer here at BrainHub. And I basically deal with everything that's related with infrastructure, clouds, platforms, whatever is supposed to work. I deal with it to make sure it works. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And as usual, I want this webinar to be interactive, so I encourage everyone to ask questions throughout the session, and we will do our best to answer them as we go along or at the end during Q&A session. And let's now move on the main part of our session. Let's start with data-driven approach. And in the fast-paced world of software delivery, data is increasingly at the heart of making impactful decisions. Today we will explore purpose, approach, tools, and challenges of adopting data-driven approach to not only enhance software delivery excellence, but also create tangible value for the business. And I would like to start with the purpose of data in decision making. So, why is data essential for decision making in software delivery? Alexandra, let's start with you.
Sure. So whenever we plan to deliver something, basically we are delivering software, but we are actually delivering solutions for the problems that business has. We need to understand why we even start this process. Yeah. So why the business actually needs some solution to be built. We've been talking about metrics multiple times in our podcast webinars, and this is essential to actually keep track of the progress that we do along the way. Also, this is like about metrics after we implement something, yeah. But we also need to understand why we even consider something to be useful. So these are the metrics that are driving the decisions for the business. That's, for example, where we are all the time stacking in one of the steps of the business flow because our infrastructure is not handling the amount of users that we have. So this will be data required for making a proper business decision because we want to unblock the flow, yeah. So the user can do whatever we like in our system. So this is how I understand it, and I always encourage our teams when we are building something to actually understand what stands what stands for why are we even doing it, and do we have any data to confirm or maybe not confirm something that we believe will be the best solution.
Yeah, and adding to what Alexandra said right now about metrics, the same can be said about things like A/B tests, which give you the exact numbers of what implemented solution is actually going to happen and is actually going to drive the business in the correct direction. Because making a decision based on some hunch or some thoughts we had is usually not the correct decision, because you cannot make a correct decision without having the data. You can obviously guess the correct one, although it's unlikely for it to be the correct one. So it's always good to have some data that you can back up your decision. Also, if the company is big, you can share it with your stakeholders or whoever needs that to see that the decisions you make are actually meaningful, which is the main purpose of collecting all the data that is needed to drive the business forward, basically.
Yeah, sure. And I suppose that every decision-making model actually consists of data in them, because it's hard to make decisions without orientation, and it's hard to orient without data. So any kind of observation. And my second question to you, what do you consider as the most critical metrics to measure in software delivery?
Maybe I will start, and I will start with a comment that it's very easy to make decisions without any data. Because then you just make an assumption that you are right, and it's great to be right? But it's very risky, because then most probably you will be driving the everything that is related with the process of delivering something in your favor, because you made the assumption and you are afraid to fail. So the most critical metric to measure in software delivery, I think, is actually return of investment. So first of all, we need to understand and define the problem. And problem is not missing feature. The problem is that somebody can't do something in the system, and we want them to do that, because then our revenue will grow, most probably. The most critical metric after all will be money, because return of investment is money anyway. And after defining this problem, we need to really figure out what metrics we want to track to check if we are actually going in a good direction. Because every decision we make, data driven or not, will be assumption, because we don't know what will happen in the end. So I always say that something that is easy to measure most probably is not critical metric for you to catch. So it will be differing from case to case. So we all love this team velocity, team capacity, all this Scrum related metrics that are great to observe team I don't want to say effectiveness, because it's not the same. Team vibe, most probably, in which position they are, if they are storming, norming, or already performing. But this is also very easy to influence. Those metrics are easy to influence. Everyone knows how to edit stuff in Jira, right? So again, I would say that it's return of investment, because we need to understand if the money that we invest, because the line of codes and solutions that we build are hours of somebody's time, and it means money. So this is the investment, and the return would be understanding how this particular part of the scope help us to grow our organization, our solution, our product, whatever. So that's on me.
For me, I would go a level lower, to be honest, because return of investment gives you a great overview of how the solution you've built is actually performing, to see it end to end, basically from start to finish, the raw money calculations. But to drive the meaningful decisions, I would assume, or even say that for me, the most critical metric would be our follow rate, basically. So how many users come back to us, what is the user journey inside our product, and basically if the users are happy with what we delivered to them. Because at the end of the day, to have that return of investment, you have to have users which will give you their money, and for them to give you their money, they have to be happy, which basically boils down to the system performing well, and the system performing in a way that the users are happy with. Yeah, and we have a question, Ola. I believe it's to you.
On a feature in on especially. How would you measure return of investment on a feature in a product that is essentially offered for free and has certain functionalities behind a payment wall? So the ROI would be for the feature that is behind this payment wall, or I believe it's this free of charge tier, right? So you will have to have a strategy first of all, yeah, to measure return of investment. So let's say that you have this feature built for a free of charge plan, and obviously if this is free of charge, you either want the users by using this feature to switch to the payment features, or you just want to grow the number of users you have. Yeah. So because basically some part of them will switch to the payments, to this paid option, sorry. So it will depend how you will define the return of investment, because it doesn't have to be money in dollars. Yeah, it might be number of users growing. Even let's say that you build the feature and you want, like, I don't know, 50% of people to use it. Yeah. So if you will be reaching this 50%, you can say that the money that you spend on it is actually giving you the return of investment that you wanted to have, because the return of investment for you would be the number of users actively using it in a percentage. Yeah. So yeah, it's more, if I would know exactly which product we would be talking about, it would be easier. But again, what Michał said is extremely important, because the users need to want to use our system. This is the metric sometimes that we forget about, because we make the assumption that our product is so great that we don't even need to ask users if they are happy with it. So this is the first thing, and the other is strategy of the product development. So I would say that seasoned product manager will always know how to measure the return of investment for every particular feature. Sometimes it's super complex, because it's hard to track this money case in the end. But again, I would say that by using the impact mapping method, you can actually really nicely see what milestones you want to achieve. And by having them analyzed and documented, you can actually define the return of investment for this one.
This is actually a very close case as to mobile games, basically what they offer, because I would assume 99% of mobile games are free to play with a certain features hidden behind a payment. So this is exactly how I would assume there are multiple case studies on how to measure that particular return on investment, although the audience probably is a bit different.
Okay, thank you, Wojciech, for the question. And I think that we can move to the very similar area. So what frameworks or methodologies best support data-driven software delivery?
Let me start, because from my perspective, I would assume the DevOps methodology makes perfect sense to mention here, because from my perspective, I try to be in my daily work, I always ask about the data, ask if there is any kind of monitoring, analytics, and if not, I always push businesses or projects to implement those features to make sure we have the complete set of data. And this is basically one of the pillars, I would say, one of the basis of DevOps to have the data, to be able to observe what is happening, to be able to react on that, or even
That's the one, and the other one would be what I'm trying to say right now is that, we are talking about software delivery. So software delivery and this area of, data driven is very specific for product development. Yeah, we used to, like, when we speak about metrics, when it comes to the product, it's easy to figure something out. Yeah, because this is something that we can actually use. But when it comes to, for example, as we do it at BrainHub, by delivering software for our clients, in particular setup, which is project-based setup, we always track scope, budget, and timeline for every project. I know that somebody might say that, hey, but this is like, what software, like, who cares? Yeah, but it's it's all about this metrics related to money. Yeah, because bigger scope means bigger money. Not delivering on time means more money, and budget is like self-explanatory, right? Then we track some metrics in-house that are related to quality of what we built. Yeah, and we have great practices that are built according to the best practices for DORA metrics and all these things that Michał already mentioned. And when this is about this, day-to-day work, let's say. But when it comes to the strategic level of data-driven software delivery, then we can just use OKRs, yeah, or any other metric that will help us to show that the solution we've built is meaningful and is contributing to the strategy goal of the organization. Yeah. So again, I will never say that framework, let's say Scrum, is the best support for data-driven software delivery, because it's measuring things without a context. Yeah. So what is super important is not only the metrics, but how you will put it into a context that you're in. And Michał, being a great DevOps engineer, will always tell me like, hey, we need to go a level lower, Olaya. It's not enough. You don't know this, and this, and it's super important. And I will always say, but hey, from the strategic perspective, I want to measure this and that. So again, I know that this is maybe something that you are not very happy to hear, but most probably you will have to figure this out on your end as a homework. What is actually the most critical metric for my organization to keep track? Yeah, as Michał said, you can check it, you can check best practices, but what best practices are missing is your context. Yeah, and this is something that can't be replaced.
I really love hearing about the context, because it is usually forgotten thing. In general, not only in software delivery, I usually refer to OODA loop, which is observe, orient, decide, act, and there is an observation layer, and it doesn't explain exactly what you need to measure. You need to figure it out, and especially in a given context, which usually is you are not able to measure everything. And it's very important to understand that some things you can easily measure in numbers, and some things you need to figure it out from any observation, from any feeling what the next actions or decisions has to be made. And let's go to the next question. We talk a little bit about frameworks, methodologies. And the next thing is tools. What tools or platforms are essential for gathering or analyzing software delivery data? What do you think?
Michał, you need to start. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Okay. So one of the loves of my life is Grafana. Probably everyone in BrainHub knows this. And recently, I've been playing around with it. Found out you can even use GitHub as a data source, so you can visualize probably everything, starting from Jira to going by GitLab, and application-specific data. So basically, it can be your one-stop shop for whatever data needs you have to be able to visualize those. Although it's exactly as Ola has said, I will always have that one level lower of perspective for her to be able to get all the data she needs, it's required for the one level lower to also be able to gather the data. So for me, it's number one. It's always going to be Grafana because it's easy to visualize that, and it's easy to have that everything in one place. Although going back to what I said at the start, so basically our users, I'm gonna go ahead with Sentry and say that any kind or even any other kind of analytics platform that allows you to gather what your users are doing and basically performance related metrics in regards to user journey is always going to be a good way to get that data and visualize it somehow to maybe then put them into cohorts to see what's the drop-off rate on each step of the user journey or whatever else the business actually needs to see to be able to calculate those higher level metrics, basically.
But isn't it that, for example, Sentry, if you will not set it up right, you can spend like enormous amount of money on all these calls. Is that true?
Of course, it is true, but it's true to probably on all observability, all metrics given tools, basically, because there are horror stories about Amazon managed Prometheus, Google managed Prometheus, basically anything that's managed and in cloud, there's always the risk of you basically going way overboard with whatever you're collecting, or there's always the risk of misconfiguration that's going to cost you money. But I believe that's the case with probably everything that's managed and not fully controlled by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, based on the experience with working with clients and in internal organizations like the product ones as well, I always saw this struggle to actually have a dedicated person to build strategy around those tools, because it's just tools, right? So if you would just buy Sentry, then most probably your like dedicated Slack channel will be just a line of text that will be saying that all the time some events are going and we have no idea if they are like good or bad or something broke. Yeah. So this one I saw as a challenge for the like observability in general, because we love to have data, but nobody wants to work with it because it's so boring, or I don't have time. Like it depends on the person, I would say. So yeah, like again, it's the tool will not help, right? Like having Grafana or Sentry in place will never actually give the results if you will not spend the time and build around it. Yeah. So Michał, by your experience, it's something that is taking like super big amounts of time when you start to build around it, or like, well, let's say that you have an existing project and you want to set it up, like how you envision this going on moving forward, like how much time you will need, what is the challenge?
So assuming we can go with a cloud managed Sentry, setting up Sentry is basically a matter of probably 1 hour from my perspective. Then I will need one developer. You give me one developer, a senior one probably, and the next day you're going to have data on Sentry, and that data is going to be meaningful. But one requirement I see here is that the person responsible for setting up Sentry and the person responsible for actually implementing Sentry inside the application has to be a cooperation between those two, at least, and both of them have to have the business context required to set up Sentry in a correct way. Because I saw it many times that people set up Sentry, look up any guide or use ChatGPT or whatever else, how to set up Sentry. That's very easy. It's basically 5 lines of code and you're done, because it's automagical. And basically whatever is automagical, it's usually not going to work in a way you envision it to work. And that's the use case of Sentry that you mentioned. So whenever you set up Sentry, set everything to full, you're going to wake up the next day with probably 200 emails saying that everything is failing and your Sentry account is now blocked because you filled up the storage in 24 hours. But that's not the case. With Sentry, you should measure. I always say that the happy path is very easy to measure, because you just send a single point of data that the user basically had a happy path and nothing bad happened, and you are good to go with. And whenever you send everything going along the happy path, it's always gonna make the bill higher, because that's unnecessary data that you collect, which obviously does not have to be in the cloud because everything went correct. The way Sentry should be configured is always that you collect the data only for the SAT path, for the crashes, for errors, but only for critical errors. You basically collect stuff that you did not expect. For everything else that's expected, it's not as necessary to collect everything. You do not need to know that this user took 1.2 seconds to click the next button, because that kind of data is not really going to be helpful for you. You can collect it in some kind of histograms, so you will know that 99% of users will click the button under 1 second or whatever. But the amount of data needed to show you that is a lot smaller than collecting 1 million clicks, and for each of them, how much time it took. But yeah, it's as you said, if implemented incorrectly, it's always going to end bad, and the data you will have there will never get to see the light of the day, because no one will want to look through the hills of errors Sentry is going to report.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one thing important that you have mentioned, especially Ola, before, that even though you have data, it's not like you can make a decision immediately. You have to orient on this data. It's like, as I mentioned before, you have observation tools, then you have to orient, then you can decide. If you skip this orientation part, it's like, what can go wrong? And this is the very next question: what can go wrong? What are the common pitfalls and challenges, and especially on relying too heavily on metrics?
Well, as you said like a second ago, having all this data will never make you not think. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, you still need to think when you work. Even the technologies we have right now are not changing this. And one thing that is, my observation, like throughout all these years, we love to have and be data driven when data is in our favor. When it's not, it's like wrong report, or like Michał said, somebody didn't like set up Sentry accordingly and we have too many errors, but it's fine. Like, how this can be fine? Yeah, it means that you are not taking care of the observability, for example, as it should be. So yeah, I think that's, I don't know, I was working in multiple organizations, and I believe I remember when on any quarterly or some big meeting, when everybody is just showing some report that is just like in this red, yellow, green, and everyone is happy because it's green, and nobody is asking why it's green. Is this really green, or what you did before the meeting to make it green? Yeah, well, there is no time for asking those questions, obviously, because it's a quarterly meeting and we are just reviewing our successes, but we are not learning anything. So yeah, I believe that I said it already multiple times, because you can sense it, that I'm not a fan of stupid metrics. I'm a fan of reliable information that I can get from the systems that are much more smarter than I am, in gathering data. But yeah, that's my view. So Michał, what about yourself?
Well, it's kind of hard to consider what to add after what you said just now, but for me, the biggest risk of relying on the data is basically not knowing what does the data mean. Because what I've seen usually is people gathering data, a lot of data based on very different sources, even like number of lines per code, which is one of the most, I would say, memeable metrics on the internet. But well, it happens. And it's not really necessary to use those metrics to make decisions, because they do not show the real performance or real evaluation of whatever was measured, which should be done in a correct way, but that requires a lot more thought to be made. Yeah, kind of hard.
That there is one law that usually can be used in terms of relying on metrics. There is a Goodhart's law. As far as I remember, it's like if a metric becomes a target, it ceases to be a good metric. And the simplest example, for example, from a software development perspective, if you will measure performance of developers via number of commits, they will commit a lot one-liners. Does it mean they are performing well? Well, probably not. And it's not like you have achieved anything via using any metrics to make them more performant. It's like you can always create some kind of metric that will actually not help at the end. So there is always this orientation part. It's like metrics are extremely fine. The problem is that we usually skip this orientation or just looking at the context step, and we just forget about the purpose why we are measuring these things. The purpose is the most critical part of making decisions. Data only helps us to understand why we are making those decisions. It's like some kind of proof, but still we need to understand them, and then we can decide. Okay, I have because I have a question. It's like Michał already mentioned AI, and it's like, is it do you see any role of AI in helping in data-driven approach now and in the future? Because I think we can split it into both sub questions. How do you see it in the current world, and what are the possibilities in the future?
From my perspective, right now, I don't see real value of using AI with data. At least I haven't found a use case that would be 100% foolproof and would work always, because the first thing to do with the data is to understand it. And basically, if you have meaningful data, you will have a lot of data, which then usually will be aggregated by some groups with whatever kind of groups you're collecting the data with, which then probably will be displayed in some other way, which are some charts, tables, cohorts, histograms, distributions, whatever you choose, whatever is needed to showcase that kind of data. Then you need the person to actually understand what does the data mean in context of the whole business, in context of the groups that you've collected, divided it all by, and to get that much of a context, it usually would take me a lot of time to correct the prompt for the AI for it to be able to actually understand the data and make the same assumptions and decisions that I would make, which usually took a lot more time than just me going somewhere, seeing the data and understanding it, because I've been working with it for a long time, so I already have the context. I can see it being good if I had the time to, for example, teach my own AI model for a year on my data, my context. But if I change a project, if I change a company, if the kind of data changes, there is a new software, I have to do all of those steps again, which is too time consuming. At least at the moment for me, I don't see a use case for AI to be helpful. What about you, Ola?
I have no idea. Because I don't, like you said, like building a model that is based on your data, it's cool, yeah, when you work with a chat, like let's say on a daily basis, because you want him to help you with, from my perspective, with some work that can be easily automated, then it's cool. But Anyway, let's say that you have, from my perspective, yeah, because I'm not a developer, not a technical person. Let's say I have a huge amount of data to analyze, like, report from, like, I don't know, 2 years showing the user retention, yeah, in the project that I'm gonna work with. Then most probably, firstly, I would have to work on anonymizing the data, and then I can, like, provide this information to any AI tool that will just basically analyze it very fast. And I can ask context questions, like, is this related with something that I already know and want to ask for, opinion. Not really sure if that's even a good word, sorry. But for checking the reports and getting essential information is great, yeah, because you don't have to, like, go through it very carefully, but you already know what you want to ask, and it's easier then, yeah. So that's from my perspective. But again, I don't think, like, from the technical perspective, let's say.
Yeah, from the technical perspective, I find AI a little bit tricky, especially in terms of development. It is like from developer's perspective. I would like to know whether code is of good quality. There are many kind of metrics that could measure that. They are not great, but still, and let's try to put this code into GPT, OpenAI, or any other tool, and ask how to improve this code. And 100% sure that it will, but it will do it in a very different way that I really wanted to. Why? Because it doesn't have purpose. It doesn't have a business context. What changes I would like to make, and giving such a context is not very easy. I need to understand what clients want. I need to gather requirements and so on and so on. There is this entire process, software delivery, and it's like I really see that there is possibility that AI will really help us in the future, but in this very moment, it's very tricky to use it. It's not like there are many tools that will help, but still, we need to have a context. We need to have to orient even with the outputs that AI are returning to us. It's not like 100% sure that it's correct or it truly understands what we want to achieve. So it's like I really hope that AI will really help us with measuring and data-driven approach in software delivery. But for now, it's like we still need to orient. We still need to consider context and really rethink what decisions we want to make. AI will help, but it's not like it will make decisions without us. Okay, there is one question considering tools. I think that Alexander will be the best to answer to that. Do you use tools like Clarity, Hotjar, or use UXCam for user journey?
Yeah. So again, working in BrainHub, we deliver projects. Yeah. So we are not entirely responsible for the product. Yeah. We work with the business very closely on the client side to understand what is required, etc. Yeah. So this is one thing. So we personally at BrainHub don't use it because, like, there is no, like, this would be a good question for our marketing team to understand if we are tracking the user journey and how we do it. But I believe this is not the question about marketing processes. So they are used in our projects, tools like this. It can be also Dynatrace, if I recall correctly. That was the tool I've been using when I was closer to the product. So what kinds of meaningful data are you trying to harness? Well, how to say it? Well, first of all, you need to understand the user journey. And to understand the user journey and how you want this user journey to look like, you need to understand the whole business flow that you have underneath your system. So most probably, you will have to start not with setting up this kind of tool, but with doing an event storming session internally to understand what is the business flow and how the user journey is merged with that. Yeah, because business flow sometimes is complicated, because most probably the decisions during software delivery were tied with something, and they've built some pitfalls for the user to go through. Like, onboarding is taking 5 minutes because there's like multiple forms to fill out and they are hard to follow or whatever. So this is the first thing. You really need to understand the user journey you have. And the other step is to find out user journey you want to have, because most probably it is blocked by the system. Yeah, at some point, like, the system is not ready to pick up the number of users, as I said at the beginning, or something is super clear and majority of people are dropping because of it. Yeah, well, it all seems very like abstract, but even recently I've been doing some of course, buying something in the internet, right? Because everyone is doing that. So I've been, going through all the steps. It's normal, you add to the cart, and I was doing it through my mobile. And for some reason, I couldn't select the proper pickup station. Yeah, actually, it wasn't InPost; it was something else. And I couldn't, because the system stopped replying and it just got stuck. So I just, you know, uh, I closed the site. Yeah. So this is what I would measure. And then like the users dropping, yeah, if they are very closely to the like finalizing the transaction with us, whatever that transaction will be, onboarding, accepting newsletter or something, yeah, I would be trying to figure out why the users are dropping, because most probably the experience they are getting is not really what they want to have. And we all say that it's like, that we need to track all this data, and Michał started with it because it's so important, but I don't believe that we are doing it. The number of ready to go solutions in the market are just giving you all this. You already have an e-commerce shop if you will just have an account on Shopify. And if you have a Shopify shop, are you actually doing all this stuff? I believe that you should, yeah, but most probably you will find out that a majority of your users are stacking because of the system that you just bought access to, and you can't do anything about it. So sometimes, to be super honest, I know that the question wasn't about it, but regarding the pitfalls again, it's hard to try. Sometimes we don't even measure the proper data because we are afraid what kind of information we will get out of it and how much money we will have to spend to fix it. Yeah. So, but in general, yes, we do. And most probably we will be always checking for the user journey when they'll don't want to continue this journey with us. Yeah. And what's the reason? But I don't know, Michał, from your perspective, like, DevOps engineer, let's assume that I will ask you to analyze some data for me from Sentry. And I would ask like our colleague here, like, what kind of meaningful data you can give me, Michał? I have like 1 day for you to give me this information. What would you do?
What kind of meaningful data? First of all, site performance. This is like number one. If we have any sites that are performing slowly, maybe some loads that are not up to speed, depending on what kind of data we measure with Sentry, because we can measure both front-end and back-end, then you're probably going to be interested in the front-end part, or if the back-end part is up to par to the front-end. So basically, performance is going to be number one, because if we do not perform well, we cannot expect the user to complete the journey. Once we have performance behind us, the second thing is number of errors on front end. So if the user goes to the website and the website crashes for some reason, this is also going to be a meaningful data for you, probably, to be able to give it to the business to say, hey, here is where users crash. We should do something about it. Number 3, if set up properly, we will have traces. So we will see basically the whole flow of the application, but this also goes back to performance. And probably number 4 is going to be user replays. So basically looking at the videos of what the users were doing, and this will probably be only for the bad paths. I would have to see if we have some happy paths stored there. If yes, maybe look at those, what happened, what went correctly, and maybe try to make it easier for the user to go that path instead of the bad path.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question, how do you foster a culture where both business and technical teams view data as a tool for collaboration rather than just a performance measure? A tricky one.
Yeah.
I can start if you want.
Yeah, please do.
So from my perspective, what I felt the most is whenever I do metrics, whenever I do data, it's usually starting with the lowest level. So I'll measure some lowest of the low levels of possible data, so some API calls, errors on that stuff. And usually once I start doing it, there will be questions. Why do we have so many errors? But no one asks about what kind of errors are those. So what I found most reliable in that case is actually documentation. If I do metrics, I tend to document each one of those in a way that's understandable for both tech team and the business side, because once the business side looks at the data, they want to understand it. And as we said before with the pitfalls on data, once you start relying on data but do not really know what does the data mean, maybe you assumed wrong, maybe it's not documented, maybe it's labeled wrongly, the decisions are going to be bad. So for me, the number one tool for collaboration is going to be documentation in that case, because once it's on paper, everyone can go back to it, can see what it means, and maybe how to use it for their particular use case.
For me, that would be to, again, always give the team information about why are we even doing this. So this will be still the strategy contribution by our solution. Yeah. So I would never actually, maybe it's a wrong approach, but I would never analyze with my team the burn down charts from Jira or any other Jira metric, to be precise. And I already said that, but it's useful. Yeah, to like let's say burn down charts. It's always so beautiful to see, like, you know, all the tickets to be resolved just before the release. How this is even possible? First of all, because people weren't updating information. Second of all, well, I don't know. I don't want to talk about the second scenario because it's super unprofessional. Like, you know, changing the scope of the ticket to actually close it. I saw teams doing something like this. So we can discuss why all the time we are not delivering something, but how many times you can get this information from, you know, smart system like Confluence, Atlassian, that guys, you are actually not delivering on time. Like, we never do, because our plan is always something different that it is at the end of the plan because something changed, etc. Yeah. So again, what I always strongly advise is to follow the deadline always. If this is just, you know, the release at the end of the iteration, and even if customer is not really, you know, waiting for this release, but because nothing major is released, you still need to release on time what you said that you will release. So this is the only metric that I use on a daily basis with the team. Also including this that I said before, so scope, time, budget, and the quality metrics that we have. But this is the only meaningful metric for me business wise, because we committed for something and we didn't deliver. And why we didn't? Not because we are lazy, but because something changed and we had to adjust. So this is what I would do. Like how to foster a culture. First of all, to always give the team a full overview of what we are doing and why we are actually doing it. So it also requires a culture with the other sides for us. So the customer, dear customer, tell us please how this is gonna influence, your business strategy. How we gonna help to deliver this business strategy to your board or whatever, to your users, whatever, who is the stakeholder. So very strong and close cooperation and communication with the client. Then daily communication with the team that is built around the commitment we took and we committed to deliver the result, to the client. Because there are days or even sometimes weeks when the team is not performing so great, but they are still delivering what they committed to deliver. So it's not really fair to just measure performance. And I've been working in places when performance was measured by the line of codes you are producing. It's not fostering any culture. It's just um it's unmeaningful. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we are after 50 minutes talking. I'm about to ask the last question, but before, to our viewers, if you would like to ask us a question, these are final minutes, I presume. And the last question from my side, I usually ask about software delivery excellence, and this is about it still. How does a data-driven approach contribute to achieving software delivery excellence?
How you want to start?
Well, again, from my perspective, Mateusz has already talked about it. So the OODA loop, basically, observe, orient, decide, act. This is what I believe to be the main contributor of data-driven approach to the software delivery excellence. Because once you have the data, you can observe the data. So that's the step one. Then you can orient. So you can do the decision and then act on it to actually do the software in a way that's consistent with software delivery excellence, basically. So you can know why that decision was made. You can do it all by the book, and you can be sure that whatever decision was made with correct data behind that decision.
Okay. And from my perspective, obviously this is the understanding that I also have, and I completely agree. But from the business perspective, like I would say that how does a data-driven approach contribute to achieving software delivery excellence? Well, when we have a correct amount of data, we can actually make decisions, technical decisions that are tied with the business. So one of our pillars of the software delivery excellence that we have here at BrainHub is that our technical decisions that our technical teams are taking are strongly geared with business impact. So we will never build a microservice, even if the metric is getting us information that they are more reliable way of building a system. This trend already is going somewhere different. And I remember when it was super hot and everyone was building microservices because it's hot and it's reliable, but the data changed. So when getting information, a proper info, a proper data, we can actually decide that, hey, maybe that would be too much for this size of the system, so let's just go with something else. What I'm trying to say is that we need to have a proper information to make a proper technical decisions that will be indeed business decisions as well. Yeah, because the system needs to support the business, so it's how it's done. This is from me, I believe.
And from my side, first of all, purpose over metrics. Metrics are useful, but the purpose is more important. And the second, I will extend a little bit Michal's answer. I really love OODA Loop because of its simplicity, but it consists of 4 elements that can be developed independently. You can improve your observability tools. You can improve your orientation or understanding context, your decision models you can improve, and you can improve the way you work, the act level. And there is 5th element that is hidden. If you are doing it better and better, you are faster actually. And this is what also gives us continuous delivery. It's like we are improving all these elements just to make more consistent delivery to our clients, considering their business purposes, their business goals. So that's all what we try to do to achieve software delivery excellence. That's how we see it. And yeah, it's like data cannot work just for being data. It's like they don't make decisions. It's like it's you who are making decisions, and you have to orient on data. Data are to help, to guide, to make a decision, but not to drive. And I think this is the most, or the biggest mistake for many people that are trying to jump into data-driven culture. They just over rely on metrics, and that's the biggest mistake. It's like the purpose is the most important thing. You should always focus on it. Metrics are like guides, but still you need to understand why you are doing things, and data will actually or eventually prove that you are doing it in the right way.
I think if I may at the end add one thing, because when I hear you guys, I think that, we like to use data and rely on data because it gives us this freedom of not being responsible. And, you will never build an excellent software without being responsible for it entirely. All the decisions you took, all the solutions you've built are honestly your responsibility. And sometimes it's hard because, every day we make mistakes, and it's okay. But we just need to learn from them and move forward. And this is something that data will never do. And nobody will care if, all the data gave you like solid background to make this decision, and you took it wrong. Again, you will have to take responsibility over it. So that's why I think that, sometimes we just use it as an excuse, because it's easy to just say, hey, I always said that we always take too much to the sprint, and that's why we are not delivering on time. But what you did about it, you just showed the results to the team, and that's it. Because if you are data driven, then it means that you need to dismiss all the team because they are constantly not performing, or something is wrong with something different. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, that's my last comment.
Yeah, I really love that one, because data-driven approach cannot be implemented without ownership. It's like not possible. You're always owner of your own decisions. Data will help you, but if you rely on them, it's like you cannot make data responsible for decisions. It's like it's not gonna happen actually.
Yeah, but you can do it if you like. Who cares?
Yeah, of course, yeah. But the results will be disastrous, I presume. Okay, there are no other questions, so I think that we can just end. And thank you for joining us today. I really hope that you enjoyed our conversation today about data-driven approach. We covered a lot of topics and aspects related to data-driven, the purposes, the frameworks, methodologies, tools, pitfalls, and the overall impact on software delivery excellence. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you guys very much, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events. Thank you and bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.